Good morning and happy Saturday, YouTube. This is Racing's Natural Aquariums, and just coming to you with a little update with regards to my Crispus. When I first showed you guys this, I think it was last week, the flowering was right there. Now this comes all the way up and right up to the surface of the water, which I don't know I'm going to be able to pick this up too much. But yep, it's right there. It's definitely taken off. Utilizing the vital tabs from H2O plants, it's definitely made a difference. I was, just like I mentioned, using seed cam, but due to the cost, it just to me wasn't worth it. So I switched to try the vital tabs, and it's definitely make a difference in the few weeks that I've utilized them. See, my crenums are coming up through, starting to coil around, trying to work their way up. Can't really tell here, but the reds are starting to come back in my Bacopia. They're definitely branching out and growing the stabilizer roots. And with these, you can actually trim these down away from the roots, move the leaves and replant it, and then before you know it, you've got new plants. So I have a bunch that I re-rooted, and they're doing pretty well. And I actually run a sponge on my HOB, and as you can see here, I've got some algae taking root on the glass, but that's the sponge filter that I have attached to the intake. It's kind of a closed cell, as I mentioned in the last video, and it has a tendency of clogging up faster. So I kind of, because I'm going to do a water change tomorrow, pushed it down a little bit and I raised it up to expose more flow to the bottom. So now I've got my current moving again. And these are the leaves from the Epongegeton all through here. And I actually, last week, I separated them out a little bit because, as you see, they're growing back up under this wisteria, which I had cut back because it started dying off, and I had cut it back, and there were some straggly roots, so I kind of just buried them a little bit more, and before I knew it, it's back. So that's a combination of Thrive All-in-One and the Vital Tabs, also dosing a little bit of iron. So it's definitely taken off. And for Dion, there's your Mario balls. They very slow growing, but this is the moss right in here. And as I mentioned on your video, you can actually take this and grow it into stainless steel screens or the hobby plastic grates. Start them in there, just leave it on the surface, and then when your jungle valves or whatever you decide to plant that may not stay, you can just sink it down below the gravel line, and that'll solve your problem and it'll grow. Now mind you, you probably can't, you can see a little bit of it back here, but this moss, I basically started right here. That moss goes all the way back into here, comes all the way up and over the driftwood up here, and now as you can see, it's kind of starting to branch out onto there. So this was kind of trimmed, but as you see, the little fish love to stay up in it. I also kind of utilize it to take my baby Java ferns and just kind of intermingle the roots in there till they grow big enough that I can move them or plant them somewhere else. So definitely something to consider there, Dion. By the way, loving your videos, your tanks, and just your personality is awesome. So kudos to my brother. And then this is the bottom of the Crispus, where you can see they all fan out. At one point this was all over here, so I've trimmed off some of the aging leaves, and then you can see there's some more moss growing up through here, which is kind of where I started it. There's my crazy coolie, or my crazy black loach. Does this all day. The other three in the tank just chill out underneath the driftwood. But there's another, it's my other crypt there. As you can see, it's got new growth coming on the bottom since I've moved the Ponchageton away and to get a little more light down in here. Which, now you can probably see it better, and maybe if I got my finger out of the way. So it's actually, as L.R. Bretsch does, plant versus plant. This is the Mike Tyson of my tank. It's not going to be blocked out by anything. So it's actually slowly grew its way up through all the other leaves. Another big part of one of my crenums. And I think this was one of the crenums that I got from Dustin's fish tank. Was shipped when it was cold, and my post office here sucks. And I think because of the delay, it kind of did the plan in. But as I noticed, there is some new shoots coming out slowly, but I'm going to leave it in there and we'll see what happens. Some of my juvenile guppies that were birthed here a few months ago. So it's definitely turning into a jungle habitat. Doing well. And, you know, I started to kind of kick up the dosing a little bit on the Thrive All-in-One, and that seemed to make all the difference in the world. The tank really started to come into its own. As I mentioned, all the roots, all the babies, and it looks like there's some kind of eggs here, and it looks like some kind of eggs here, which are probably snail eggs. So we'll see. I can't imagine a fish putting eggs up that high. But usually the eggs that I find are more like, and I don't know if you can see it, right above my finger there's a little gloopiness. That kind of reminds me of snail eggs. So I'm not going to complain about them. As you can see, they're up here going to town on some of the algae. And once they get a little bit bigger, I wind up pulling them out. But for right now, you know, they definitely cleaned off all the algae that was on here, and the plant started to look real good. But I do notice since the new light, I'm not getting the brown algae or the diatom algae as the local store clerk was trying to tell me I would get, but I didn't even get into that conversation. But it definitely is, and because of the fluctuation of the current there, you see there's another little baby swimming around. I am getting a little bit on my Java fern, which isn't really a big deal. I've got some new growth down in here, some growth up in here, and then some that are dying back because right there is the giant root system, and that was only started with probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 different leaves when I first started it. And all this growth right here is all from the mother plant. And then back in there, one that I've got, 2 that I've actually got growing in the moss just to get it started. And occasionally I'll stick a few up in here just for them to have something to hang on to like this. And then from there I just can take them out and move them around, replant them. But I'm also doing it because, like I said in my earlier video, I'm probably going to use that small, sorry for the mess, small 10-gallon to probably start a shrimp tank, because it's definitely too small for the amount of scarlet bettuce I want to put in there, and glow light rosebarras. So that's pretty much it. Everything is coming along rather nice. Finally found the fert combo that actually works for this tank, and as I said, you can see just how fast this is growing, and it definitely has a vanilla, a sweet vanilla scent. Somebody had mentioned that it smelled like, I want to say vanilla and almond or something, but it's definitely got a nice sweet smell to it. And I can actually propagate these once the seeds form further down. I could actually grow my own, but I don't know if I'm going to have that type of luxury, so we'll see what happens. Well, folks, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and definitely enjoyed a lot of the streams and videos that I've been able to watch. I try to definitely watch as many as I can, but lately with my shift change and having to go into work early and usually get stuck staying later than I want to, I don't get a chance to see them all. It's not because I don't want to, it's just because I just don't have the time. So my first thing is I usually get up in the morning, grab my coffee, and start watching videos, and then get ready for work. And then when I come home, pretty much the same thing for a little while. Maybe jump on 1 or 2 live streams, and then get back to life. So got to get ready. I've got things to do this afternoon, so I hope everybody has a great weekend. Keep those sleeves wet, and God bless. Racing's Natural Aquariums out.